Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a great show lined up for you today. We got Jackie Spreads with his man, Sam Graveline from Inside the Gators. And in the second portion of the program, we'll have NCAA individual golf champion, Nick Gilliam, talking a little Gator golf. But in the meantime, I'm going to turn this program over to our man, Jackie Spreads, who's currently in studio and is brought to you by Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Jackie, good morning, and we'll talk to you after you're done, my man.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Shane. And today I welcome on a good buddy of mine and somebody who is extensively knowledgeable about the NFL and Florida football, especially Gators in the NFL. When you combine the two, his name is Sam Graveline. We welcome him on now. Sam, how are we doing this morning?
Doing good, Jack. Thanks for having me on. It's awesome just to get back and talking some sports. The NFL draft concluded a couple of weeks ago, so we've been talking about that for a while. And like I said, just thanks for having me on. I'm ecstatic to talk a little sports with you for a little bit.
Of course, and anytime we can actually get a good sports conversation flowing nowadays, it seems like it's Christmas morning, and I'm lucky enough to have that be once a week now. So that is it really is a wonderful thing. I want to go back to draft day, NFL draft day. You and I played a little round of golf there, and you were showing me your mock draft. And while I don't remember every single pick you had on there, the one that stood out to me was you had Henry Ruggs going first wide receiver off the board. That was plus 300 in Vegas. I went ahead and took it because you told me to. Obviously, it hit. It was a great bet. I was ecstatic about it. What did you see in Henry Ruggs going to Oakland? How did you get that call?
Well, I think it was more so just I think John Gruden was probably just enamored with Henry Ruggs, especially with the speed. I think having to play Kansas City twice a year, I think a lot of teams are starting to take that blueprint and getting speedy wide receivers, playmakers, get the ball into their hands and let them do the work. I think you saw the Broncos try to do that. They drafted a number of receivers and they're in the division. But I think with Henry Ruggs, you kind of saw him early in the draft. He was kind of wide receiver 3 behind his teammate Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. Then I think he ran a good combine. I think it was a 4.28 officially. He was going for John Ross's 4.22. He didn't get it, but I mean, he's an absolute burner. He can jump out of the gym. He used to play basketball in high school, so he can go up and get the ball too. He's not just a burner. But I think John Gruden, I think he just saw him on the board at 11. He pulled the trigger. We'll have to see if it works out for him. But I mean, the prospect-wise of Henry Ruggs, just the speed, he's a game changer. You get the ball in his hands, he can take a slant to the house.
Right. And today's NFL, I mean, much like basketball, is so much more spread out and quick moving now. We have things like Tyreek Hill jet sweeps and screen passes that are just going seemingly 90 yards at least once a game. You got running backs too, like Nick Chubb and Dalvin Cook, who can break off these 75, 80-yard runs with just one cut and make it feel like it's nothing. So to have somebody with that much speed on a team that has to play Kansas City twice a year and that has to play a tough schedule out west and seems to get unfavorable game times and things like that and the travel of it. I mean, it's really hard to be a West Coast team, and I think that you being able to see, hey, Gruden's really going to like this guy, whether it's a character thing or just a pure skill set thing, it always differs in terms of what teams want, and that's why mock drafts are so difficult. So I do commend you there for having that right, because it was an unbelievable call.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were a couple of others that I definitely got wrong, but for some reason I just felt really good about Ruggs going to the Raiders. I just really feel like Gruden wanted that guy and he got it. And then, I mean, they took 2 other receivers in the 3rd round, back-to-back 80 overall and 81st overall, and Lynn Bowden and Brian Edwards. So 3 SEC receivers really for the Raiders. So it they just really wanted to get some pass catchers, and I think they did a pretty good job.
Right, and we see records being set every year seemingly about the SEC and how many guys they're getting drafted, and LSU this year especially. What do you think separates the SEC from other conferences and makes it the best? Because obviously there's the talent thing, but if I'm a top recruit, I'm a top quarterback going into college, I don't think I want to go to Georgia or Florida or Alabama and have to play A&M and Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, whoever it may be. Why aren't they just going to Arizona or Oregon and playing kind of a weaker schedule and in hopes to get a ring like Marcus Mariota did?
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, I mean, the talent is obviously greater in the SEC, and I think that goes to recruiting. I mean, you can always look every year in recruiting cycles of the top 10 classes, 6 or 7 of them are in the SEC, and I think that can definitely translate. As far as for like quarterbacks, I mean, I think a lot of it is down to coaching in the SEC. I think NFL coaches and college coaches in the SEC. I think they have really good relationships. I mean, for example, you talk about LSU's offense. That was essentially a pro offense this past year. You know, their offensive coordinator, passing game coordinator, Joe Brady, he is the offensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers now. So that is pretty much a offense, you know, in the NFL that was being ran there. So that's going to help them a lot. And you saw that every LSU offensive player that was draft eligible either got drafted or they were signed as an undrafted free agent. So I think a lot of it is just the coaching and the preparation in the SEC. I think a lot of NFL coaches see that and they say they think it's probably comparable to what they want to do, or just kind of has them in a good situation to right when they get into training camp or rookie OTAs, they're going to be ready to hit the ground running.
Right, and Coach Donovan, when I had him on a few weeks back, talked about how mature guys seem to be coming out of college now, and this is even more true in football than in basketball sometimes, because there's obviously the rule where you have to stay in college for at least 2 years before you can enter the NFL. It's different in basketball. Jason Tatum is a shining example of this, where he came out of college at 19, and Paul Pierce was quoted saying, "This MFer is a grown man already at 19 years old." So it just seems like there's a lot of character development. I mean, in the NFL, it's different. You have guys like Laramie Tunsil who get in trouble before the draft, and then you have guys like Joe Burrow who seem to be just a dream. So I wanted to touch on Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa a little bit there, that debate. A lot of people are thinking that Tua is actually going to have a better NFL career. Who do you think will have a bigger effect on their team in the first 3 years in Miami and Cincinnati?
In the first 3 years, that's tough because, I mean, obviously with Tua, the big thing is the injury, how healthy he is, if that hip is right. I mean, injuries around a quarterback, you know, that's nothing you really want to mess with. So as for with that, I'll probably have to say Burrow for the first 3 years because, I mean, they just got rid of Andy Dalton. So I think Burrow's probably the only rookie quarterback that starts week one, maybe even plays majority of the season because I'm not too sure. Obviously, Tua's injury. And then with Herbert in LA, I think the Chargers are really like Tyrod Taylor. So, you know, you might not see Herbert till like week 10 or so. So I think Burrow's a guy who can probably play week one. He's probably going to be a front runner for rookie of the year offensively. So I think in the first 3 years, I think Burrow will probably make that impact. But I mean, there's no denying what Tua can do when he's healthy on the field. I think he will definitely get coached up a little bit more, not to always go for the home run play and kind of know to get the ball into the playmakers that Miami has around him. So right now, I'd have to say Burrow for the first 3 years, but I do think Tua is really going to be a great prospect as long as he stays healthy.
Right, I've been quoted saying that I think that Joe Burrow and Tua will both win MVPs throughout their career. I think that this draft class was deep in quarterbacks for the first three of them. I don't know how good Herbert's going to be, but he's clearly better than a guy like Jake Fromm, who we see in other drafts that are weaker. We see Jake Fromm go in the second round, or Baker Mayfield go in the first round, where you can kind of tell with these Heisman level quarterbacks, and obviously Fromm never won a Heisman, but he was in the conversation. You can tell with these quarterbacks who's going to be able to translate it to the NFL and who's not, and that speaks to LSU's offense again, where you just saw Burrow making unbelievable plays left and right in that pro offense. It makes pro scouts drool. Talk about how a spread offense in college has trouble translating to the NFL with quarterbacks that haven't really been able to make the jump.
Well, I think a lot of it is, I think some quarterbacks college, I think a lot of them struggle initially going under center. I know that was a big thing for Baker Mayfield. I mean, when he was at Oklahoma, I don't think most of his snaps, he was in the shotgun and he was not taking a lot under center. He goes to Cleveland, has to be under center majority of the time. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then it's just a lot more tighter, you know, the spread offense, it's well more suited for college. But I think you're kind of starting to see it a little bit change in the NFL where, like we said, teams are kind of starting to spread it around more. More athletes are on the field. You want to get the ball to those guys, and you want to have them have a lot of space.
Right, and it speaks again to the SEC being able to prepare these guys. I want to talk about Florida prospects a little bit specifically. Van Jefferson comes to mind. He's out in LA with the Rams. What do you think is the pathway for Van Jefferson to win a wide receiver 2 or 3 job out in LA?
Well, I think he actually landed in a pretty good position. He went 57th overall to the Rams, which I think a lot of people thought it was a little bit high, myself included, not because based off ability, just because he did not get to compete in the combine. He had a Jones fracture in his foot. So I think that really hurt him a little bit. Well, at least I thought it would hurt his stock a little bit because he had a great Senior Bowl. A lot of scouts were raving about him at the Senior Bowl. But seeing him go to LA 57th overall, I think he's landed in a really good position for himself. He's going to an offensive-minded football team with a great offensive mind in Sean McVay. Obviously, the Rams, they've kind of taken a step back from a couple of years ago when they were in the Super Bowl, but I think they still have a lot of promise around them. They're a pretty young team. They have a young quarterback. As terms of him fighting for a position, obviously he's got a couple good receivers in front of him, and Robert Woods is someone that he said he looked up to. So I think that's going to be really cool for him to be a teammate with Robert Woods. And then obviously Cooper Kupp. But I think that's going to allow him to probably compete for the wide receiver 3 job with Josh Reynolds out there. I know Josh Reynolds, he had kind of some catch rate struggles, doesn't catch as many passes as he probably should. So I think that's definitely where Van can come in and take some reps from him there. He's obviously a technical route runner, probably would say one of the best in the just draft class other than maybe Jerry Jeudy in terms of route running ability. And he comes from, not only is his dad a former player, but he's also an NFL coach. So he comes from that pedigree. He knows what to do. He's a great leader. I think he's got a really good chance to get some reps in LA, probably as their 3rd receiver.
And in football, I mean, injuries run rampant. It's sometimes it's ridiculous at how many times these guys are getting injured. And as a fantasy football player, I mean, you know as well as I know that it's unbelievable that you need to be deep. You need to have 5 good receivers on your team, or else you're going to be playing used car salesman like the Giants were last year when they had Darius Slayton as the wide receiver 1, and he was undrafted out of Auburn. Sure, the guy had a great year and he was great, but he can't be your wide receiver 1 if you're trying to compete in the NFL. So having guys like that and finding them with a 57th pick is huge. And another guy like that is Tyree Cleveland. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he went to Indianapolis. How do you feel about that?
Denver.
Fit? Denver. How do you feel about that fit out in Denver for Cleveland?
So he went Denver in the 7th round. Like I mentioned earlier, Denver was definitely receiver happy. So I think that's going to kind of fit to him a little bit. That's going to help him because they needed receivers. They feel like they found their quarterback of the future in Drew Lock, and it's no secret that their draft strategy was to get weapons around him. So he's definitely going to have his work cut out for him, though, just because they drafted 2 receivers ahead of him. Their 1st round pick was obviously Jerry Jeudy. He was the 15th overall pick. You know, he's going to be, they're planning on him to pair with him and Cortland Sutton to be a great 1-2 combo. But then in the 2nd round, they drafted KJ Hamler out of Penn State. He's an absolute burner. Get the ball in his hands, he's going to make a play. So in that regard, Tyree definitely has his work cut out for him to make the 53-man roster. But I think where he can really shine is where he shined a little bit toward his last couple of years here at Florida, and in regards to special teams. He was a great gunner on the punt team. He's a 4.5 guy. He can run. There's no doubt denying that. So, and he's on top of that, he's willing to play special teams. And you saw that here at Florida. You know, he wasn't catching the big touchdowns and all that, but he was willing to play special teams. So I think that's really how he's going to have to make his cut will be with the Broncos, to probably start grinding out on special teams. And then hopefully maybe he can develop into a bigger red zone guy for them. He definitely needs to shore up his hands. Dropped a couple passes here at Florida. But, I mean, there's no denying the athletic ability that he has. But there's just a couple guys on top of him on the depth chart.
Right. And when you have speed like that, there really is, it seems like you have 9 lives. I mean, you can get cut, and you can get cut, and you get cut. But if you're good at special teams and you run that quickly and your official position is receiver, it seems like these guys stay in the league longer than we realize. Another pick that really caught my eye in the 2nd round there was Philly taking Jalen Hurts, their quarterback out of Oklahoma, obviously used to be at Bama, won a championship with them, got pulled in a championship game, and Tua went and finished it. That started the whole Tua thing. Hurts transfers. Do you think that Jalen Hurts has any opportunity to play quarterback in Philly? And if so, do you think that Carson Wentz will be thrown by the wayside?
Well, I mean, he definitely has an opportunity just based off Carson Wentz's injury history. I think that was the biggest thing. Right now, I think he's kind of a security blanket. I wouldn't think that Philadelphia would be throwing Wentz to the wayside, given, you know, the contract that they signed him to pretty recently and how much money they do owe him. And I think that would be pretty premature. You know, he's only been in the league, 4 or 5 years. And obviously the injury concerns have been a thing, but I mean, he willed them to the playoffs with basically no receivers.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're throwing him to the wayside. A lot of the speculation was when they drafted him was that he was going to be a Taysom Hill type player. He's definitely an athlete. There's no denying his athletic ability, but Jalen Hurts wants to be a quarterback. So could I see him seeing the field in Philadelphia? Absolutely. Do I think he's their quarterback of the future and he's going to overtake Carson Wentz? I don't see that right now. Obviously, stranger things have happened in the NFL, but right now I think he's definitely just a very, very serviceable backup for Wentz. And then I think Doug Peterson will definitely find some ways, some gadget plays to get him the ball, because as we've seen in his time in college with the ball in his hands, he knows how to make some plays. And he's a great leader.
Yeah, of course, and in Philly, that's pertinent because it seems like you need to have double leadership there with those fans, especially in that division. That
Hey,
division has been
absolutely.
extremely weak lately, so it's always good to have more and more talent on the field in a division where 8-8 or 9-7 can win it. And obviously, I mean, there's always that chance, and I had a vision of this after I saw them getting picked. Oh, Wentz is going to tear his ACL. Jalen Hurts is going to come out and set the world on fire. Then we're going to have a huge quarterback controversy. Carson Wentz is going to end up in Jacksonville or something, and then his career will be over. Because that seems to happen when you go to Jacksonville. Look at Nick Foles.
Yeah, reverse Nick Foles.
Exactly. Do you think that they drafted Jalen Hurts just because they were like, I'm tired of seeing Carson Wentz get injured and have to play somebody else? We need at least somebody who's good.
Yeah, I mean, can you really blame him? I mean, Wentz, he obviously the injury concerns are real. He does get injured, and he's a quarterback who he puts his body on the line. He's hasn't really been shown to slide and give up a couple yards. He's going to fight for those extra yards. So I think they wanted Jalen Hurts as that absolute security blanket. And then, like I said, there's a lot of speculation about them wanting to use him in different ways. So we'll see. I mean, they had the backup quarterback problem with Foles and Wentz a couple of years ago, and the big speculation about how the locker room preferred Foles, and then they moved Foles and all that. I'm not too sure if they're going to do all that, but I think right now Hurts is just a premier security blanket for Wentz.
All right, we got a question here on the Titan MRI hotline. We have our friend Freddie asks, Sam, what have you seen in Florida prospects of the past that separates them from older prospects going into the draft? Like, for example, a Percy Harvin or a Tim Tebow. What do you think separates these Gator guys from other schools going into the draft?
From other Florida teams, or
from other SEC and other conference schools? We mentioned SEC teams are seemingly more prepared, and that reigns true with a lot of Florida players. We see them come in and make an immediate impact. I'll rephrase that a little bit. What do you have to do as an NFL rookie coming out of college to make an immediate impact in the NFL, whether it's special teams or just kind of playing your role?
I think the biggest thing is just being coachable. I think once you get drafted, I think those NFL coaches are really just seeing who can come in and do their job, whether it is special teams, whether, like you said, their role. I think that's just the biggest thing, is how they can kind of carve their way out of the field. Because you've seen a number of players who were undrafted guys, they work their way up and then they become, a household name. For example, my favorite is Adam Thielen. He is, obviously a star wide receiver for the Vikings, but before that, he was a special teams grinder for a couple of years. He was the fake punt specialist, and then he became, this serious wide receiver. As for Florida guys, I mean, Tim Tebow and Percy Harvin, they were incredibly productive in college, and it definitely doesn't hurt that they were coming from Dan Mullen's system. So they were putting up numbers, and I think for a guy like Percy and his sake, I mean, he was kind of a do-it-all. He would fit perfectly in today's NFL. Obviously, he's trying to come back, but like if he was a prospect now, he would be a great fit just because of what he can do in the passing game and in the running game and in the returning game. He's a triple threat in that regard. Right. As for Tebow, I mean, everyone was kind of a little speculative of his with Denver moving up to get him, and he wasn't in the league for very long. But I think he showed when he was a college player that he is an absolute winner at all costs. He will win no matter what, and he's a leader, and I think that's why Denver wanted him. And I mean, he won a playoff game for him. It obviously didn't work out in the long run, but
hey, the Jets got the best of him, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets got the best of them. The Eagles, he had a cup of coffee in New England with Tom Brady for a little bit.
Right.
But.
I mean, and I think this personally, I think about this pretty often. If Tebow were to just say, whatever, I'll play linebacker, or whatever, I'll play tight end or fullback or whatever it was, he probably would have had a much longer career, and he probably wouldn't be playing minor league baseball right now. But that's neither here nor there. I'm sure the guy is happy, and that's all we can really talk about with that, right?
Yeah, he could have probably been. We've been talking about Taysom Hill quite a bit this show, but he probably would have been the Taysom Hill before Taysom Hill.
Right.
With his skill set. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Pre-Taysom Hill. And I wanted to talk about the top pick for Florida. This is a question off the Pound Hurt Personal Injury Attorneys, our lead sponsor here. When you talk about Henderson going to Jacksonville there, Do you think that that's a good fit for him? I know Jacksonville takes guys like Jalen Ramsey, and Tampa takes guys like Vernon Hargreaves, and we see that again here with Henderson going there. I know they just traded pretty much their entire talent pool. Do you think that guys going to a team like Jacksonville can really hinder their development?
I'm not going to get too much into saying that, but I feel like CJ Henderson is just kind of a different cat. He's cool, calm, and collected. He lets his play do the talk, and you're not as much to get a smile out of him. He is a cerebral assassin. He's super quiet. So, I mean, I saw a lot of Jags fans feeling like they reached for Henderson at 9th overall, which you can maybe make the argument. But, I mean, they needed a cornerback. They needed to cover someone. They got rid of A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey. They were one of the great cornerback tandem the last couple of years, but they got rid of them. They needed someone to cover. And there was clearly the cornerback class was relatively deep, but not so much in top tier talent. There was Jeff Okudah and CJ Henderson toward the top. And then there was a pretty big drop off from the rest of the guys. So I feel like in Jacksonville, they just kind of said, hey, this is our guy. They had pick 20. He probably wasn't going to make it to 20. They could have traded back up into the 15, 16 range, but they saw him at 9 and they had to pull the trigger. I think CJ can be a really great player. He obviously, needs to work on some tackling things, but I mean, he's a cornerback. He's getting paid to cover premier wide receivers. He can run with anybody. I mean, he ran a 4.3. He's stronger than a lot of people think. He is a gym rat. He's going to put in work in the gym. So I think he can be a really good fit. Obviously, a lot of things go on in Jacksonville behind the scenes that we're not all too sure about, but he's pretty level-headed. And like I said, he's a quiet guy. He's about his business. So I think he's going to be a pretty good cornerback in the NFL.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the talent is there, and the raw talent will kind of carry him through no matter where he is. Sam, fortunately, that's all the time we have today, buddy. We're going to go do some ads now, and then we'll have Shane Matthews come on and talk to Nick Gilliam, Florida individual golf champion. So very special guest there. We're going to talk some Florida golf, and maybe even some Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson coming up here in the next few weeks. I know I'm excited about that. Again, Sam, we appreciate having you on, and this won't be the last time. You have a safe day.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie Spreads. I'll be on anytime you need me. Just give me a call.
All right, sounds good, buddy. Thanks.
Time out! Time out! Hey, time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back. Hot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We want to thank Jackie Spreads and Sam Graveline talking a little sports with us. Hey, folks, Celebration Point is where the Gators come to celebrate. With premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, and Visor's Rooftop Bar. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. We're going to go now to the Titan MRI hotline, and we're joined by Gator great golfer, Nick Gilliam. Good morning, Nick. How are you?
I'm well, Shane. How are you, sir?
I like the putting green in the background there, man. It looks like
Thank
Augusta National.
It doesn't run quite like Augusta, but at the same time, my son thinks it's pretty cool. So that's good.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Nick, let's talk a little bit about, you grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which, how in the world did you get into golf playing up in Green Bay? Was it difficult with the weather?
It was, yeah, seasonal challenges, right? I played basketball. I'm 6'5", so wanted to find a sport in the summer where I didn't have to be outside or in a gym. But I ended up being outside playing golf, and it seemed like at age 3, my dad, being a good golfer himself, always a scratch handicap, he just wanted me to be out with him on the driving range and given evenings after his workday. And I was lucky enough to just have innate ability to swing a golf club, hit the golf shot where I was looking without too much instruction. And there was a cool little mini putt course right by the driving range that we kind of grew up going to. And this is back in the days of persimmon. For those listeners that are out there, people know. It was a special time, and I was lucky to do that. And moving to Florida was great happenstance, and I couldn't be, luckier in the fact that worked out for me to come to the University of Florida too.
Yeah, you moved from Green Bay down here to Gainesville. You went to Gainesville High School, and then you decided to go to North Carolina and Chapel Hill to play golf. Why did you choose North Carolina initially?
Well, that becomes a family story. My mom passed during that period of time when I moved to Gainesville to become a better golfer. My junior year of high school, I decided to become a better player based upon a few different circumstances. We just didn't have enough money to pay for all the national golf that you could actually play as a young person to get on the recruit scene. And I'm sure the same happens in football and baseball and all different sports, soccer, lacrosse, who knows? I was actually lucky enough to find a way to get my way down to Gainesville by myself. I lived right next to Gainesville High School. My senior year of high school at Covered Bridge. If anybody's on this podcast that understands where that is, it's right next to GHS. And I was lucky enough to live by myself for an entire year. If I could revisit a year for the rest of my life, that'd be the year. Anyway, I ended up choosing Chapel Hill because of the circumstances that kind of intervened. And then Buddy Alexander, the golf coach at the University of Florida, whom I still love to this day as a father. He is a second father figure to me. Was kind enough to let me come back after me realizing I needed to come back to the Gainesville area because I made so many great relationships. And I kind of thought I wanted to get away, but at the same time, it was a nice chance for me to kind of look at the different scenes that were available to me too. And I was lucky enough to have a lot of different recruiting places. I think a lot of great athletes have had that same chance too.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about, Buddy has had a tremendous success here at the University of Florida as a coach. You talked about what he meant to you, but I've also heard, and I don't know how it's difficult, how it's a coach in golf can be hard on his players, but I've heard he's pretty hard on his players at times.
I'm not going to get too into that, but yeah, I mean, here's the deal. He's a very good player himself. So expecting greatness comes from greatness. And that's one of the things that he's always done very well. Commandments. I wish I had the list of his commandments. He used to have 12 commandments because he had 2 more than God did, because, he's better than God. And he did have commandments. And, in the simple, there were simplistic thoughts about how you would play golf. And he was so good at it. And he did do a wonderful job. But if anything, Buddy, if you're listening to this podcast at some point, he knows this. He tends to be not the glad hander, but at the same time, a glad hander while maintaining the respect of the person he is giving a hard time to. He is, I don't know what was Spurrier like to you?
Well, he was very hard to play. He was hard on you. He expected a lot of perfection, but understood you would make mistakes. But, you know, it was his job to get the best out of him. Probably very similar to what Buddy did. And, you know, I had no problem with him getting on me when I made mistakes because I was hard on myself. And anyway, let's talk about, you know, 2001, y'all win the national championship here as a team, but you're also the individual champ. Talk a little bit about your team. You know, it was Benedetti, Camilo Villegas, Bubba Dickerson. Talk a little bit about that team.
All great people. A wonderful time. And also, you know, Buddy's dad passed away. He actually has his where he actually passed away, and his gravesite is in Durham, North Carolina. So during that week, it was a wonderful experience for all of us. I was the fourth player in that team. You talk about Camilo Benedetti, Camilo Villegas, Bubba Dickerson, those three guys, extremely competitive, wonderful to be a part of it. And I was just trying to be the team captain, managing their personalities. And the fifth player in that team is maybe one of the best stories of it. His name is Ben Banks. He was a walk-on, and his dad is the third member of the band Genesis. He never told us through 2 years that he is from the Genesis thread. So he was also a part of that team, and certainly winning that event was wonderful. We couldn't beat the Dukes and the Clemsons and Georgia Techs. And also, I guess, it's about it of the world at the same time. And really, for us, it was pretty special.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick time out, pay some bills here, a quick short commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about you winning the individual championship and some of the guys you beat. You're watching and listening to Fight Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time
All right.
Coming right back.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Area Rug Masters, your #1 choice for rug cleaning. And Pound Hurt, preferred personal injury attorneys.
Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to a Thursday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. At Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Come in and experience the Center State difference. To learn more, visit centerstatebank.com. Center State Bank, member FDIC. We're joined by former Gator greats and the 2001 NCAA individual champion, Nick Gilliam. Nick, you wanted to give a shout out to someone, right?
Well, there's Bobby V from Infotech that's watching right now in the pod, and just wanted to let him know we appreciate all his support for what he's doing. And I work for Infotech now, and it's in Celebration Point as well. So
absolutely. So let's go back to 2001, Nick. And you were a great college golfer, but you had never won a golf tournament, and you just happened to decide to win your final collegiate tournament and be the individual champ. And I'm going to read some of these names that you beat: Bill Haas, Lucas Glover, Nick Watney, Graham McDowell. I mean, these are dudes that can golf their ball. Talk a little bit about not only what y'all did as a team to win the team event, but you win in the individual. And only 2 Gators have ever done it. You and Bob Murphy. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, before I even get into that, there are 2 things to say. Luke Donald wasn't on that list because they didn't qualify from Northwestern, sadly. And they've changed kind of the rules since then. And on top of that, I would say as a team captain, for me personally, I was just lucky to be in a very good place that week. And golf tends to have momentum. And I think a lot of people understand how you get momentum doing the right things well, practicing well, and having a strict discipline about what you believe from a pre-shot routine. And a lot of people have a different pre-shot routine in golf. And that week for me was a perfect encapsulation of a lot of effort that I put into the game. And I did win other golf tournaments prior to that one, but they were not as big. So
I got it. But, you know, like you said, you and Bob Murphy, who I think in 1966 was the individual champ, and he had a long career on tour. But these are some of the other individual champs, and it just blows your mind when you hear these names. Jack Nicklaus, Ben Crenshaw, Tom Kite, Curtis Strange, Jay Haas, Scott Simpson, you know, Phil Mickelson won it several times, Tiger Woods, Scott Verplank. I mean, that's got to be cool to be in the same group as those guys.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is a special group. And I've been lucky in my life. I'm 41 now, and, you know, that's 20 years ago. And it's certainly been a wonderful ride. I've been close on the PGA Tour, and I wish I was lucky enough to be one of those guys you would interview and talk about winning events and majors, and I was close in that fashion. But, you know, it just didn't turn out. But at the same time, I'm lucky to raise a great family and be a part of the golf world in the future, because it's one of those sports that is, I think, the best sport for anybody raising a young family, trying to get together. And, you know, during these weird times, I even talked to Pat Dooley the other day about it. Everyone just wants to get outside. Mm-hmm. So
we got a Facebook Live question here for you, brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Freddie wants to know, what's your favorite golf course that you've played?
Oof, that's for me. I haven't traveled overseas, but right now for me, Pine Valley is still my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one. What's your best round you've ever shot, Nick?
I shot 62 during a competitive round in Huntsville, Alabama, at the Becky Pierce Memorial Golf Course.
Okay. All right. And here's something, you know, I'm a big golfer, but you always hear people wanting to know, being a really good golfer like yourself, what do you think is more important for the average player? Getting off the tee, driving the ball well or straight, or putting well?
Well, short game is always going to be the most important, but you can't get to the short game area if you can't get it off the tee. So exactly. It depends on the player. That's based upon the person itself. But certainly the short game is where you make up the most strokes within 100 yards.
You know, there's some tall dudes on tour now. You know, Dustin Johnson's around 6'4", but back when you were growing up, there weren't a whole lot of tall guys. And like you said, you're 6'5". How difficult was it for you? Because, you know, the longer your swing gets, the more problems that can happen. How was that for you growing up?
It was a challenge to adjust to club size, and also just, you know, even just getting different shoes, truthfully. But Ernie Els was one of the role models I had coming up. Ernie was always a big guy. He always swung it really smoothly. And, you know, the biggest challenge was trying to adjust to your height and growth. But it was simple enough. I always worked on my flexibility and my core, which is huge in all things athletic. So I think that kept me kind of in the game as long as it possibly could.
Yeah, when you look at these guys on tour these days, they're in such great shape. They're just mashing the golf ball. Is it mostly because they're in better shape, the technology, or a combination of both?
It's definitely the combination of both.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Nick, when you played the University of Florida golf course, let's be honest, it wasn't that great. It was fun to play, but it wasn't what it is now. Do you like the changes? Obviously, the shape it's in is unbelievable. But would you have liked? I mean, do you like the changes they made there?
In 2001, I was lucky enough to be a part of the opening, and Bubba Dickerson and I beat a lot of old timers from, the Gatorade golf community. Yes, it was not in great shape when we played there. There was a lot of dirt and sand around the greens, and there were tough run-up greens. I love the changes, but I'm in the camp amongst people that are battling against me because they miss the old school. Where are you on that?
Well, I mean, I grew up playing the old golf course. It was fun. I can't remember a lot of the holes nowadays, but the conditions were nothing like what it is now. But is that when they redid the golf course in 2001?
Started right around the beginning of 2000. They finished it in 2001 around the summer.
Gosh, I can't. It's been almost 20 years. I didn't even realize that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, Nick, let everybody know. I think you're pretty involved with Gator Golf Boosters.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to get in, there it is, right there, the swinging Gator. You got to love that logo. Can you hear me?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to get involved with Gator Golf Boosters, what do they need to do? Are you the president of Gator Golf Boosters?
Formerly. Right now, I'm just on the board of directors. It's GatorGolfBoosters.com. So you're more than welcome to come in and check out what we're doing. And it's a new website. And Chris Lembo, who is the husband of Brenda Lembo, who is our administrative assistant for the men's and women's golf team, has done a great job of kind of rejuvenating that website. And certainly you can find your way in there and see what we're doing and checking out the golf program.
So, Nick, to go back to your college days, do you have any good stories of you hanging out with other athletes at the University of Florida?
Yeah. I mean, even now to this day, we still do. I mean, Ricky Nattiel, one of the greatest receivers of all time. I remember playing Tecmo Bowl as a young man, and coordinating with Gator greats is one of the best things about being a part of the Gator Nation. It really is. It's impressive. Scott Strickland has been really nice to me. Just trying to figure out what's going on in Gainesville too, because he likes golf, and trying to think maybe hanging out with Shane Matthews from time to time.
Remember the year I was on your team and we won the Gator Pro-Am at the Gainesville?
I do seem to recall that year. Yes, I do. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, I know you know Coach Spurrier pretty well. You got any good Coach Spurrier stories?
So with Spur, the last time I played golf with him, it was Gator Golf Day with a group, and I was lucky enough to get paired with him. I was just having a nice day. He said, "You know what? He had another promotion that evening, and he was saying, well, I understand. You just have to have a good time, because I hit a couple bad shots, and I think everyone was leaning on me. They're leaning on me. I'm the pro. You got to make your 20-foot putts, which nobody can make a 20-foot putt on call. But he definitely was leaning on me. And then my favorite, I hope, and I think we talked about this before, Brady Ackerman's listening. I remember watching, let's see, it's number 7T. It's a par 5 at UF Golf Course. Brady, you, and Coach Spurrier are playing. And he said, "Hey, Nick, you know Shane. And this is Brady Ackerman, local radio personality." That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When it comes to Spurrier, he's always very forthright. And I appreciate that. Same as, like you said, with Buddy. So with Gator athletes, man, it goes on and on beyond that too. I can't get on the Peloton with Billy, and that might be the next step for you. You might need to be.
No, Horschel gets after it on that bike. It's crazy what he does. We got a comment here from Gene, brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. It says, "Great to hear from old Nick." Nick, last thing for you. You tried, playing professionally, but then you went and worked for FootJoy. What was that like? You know, everybody knows what FootJoy is that plays golf, but that had to be kind of cool. You probably had some good relationship. You got to meet a lot of professional golfers.
I did. Yeah, I was lucky enough to do that for 5.5 years, giving away product to very nice people. And yeah, working for them was second to none. I left before they went to an IPO, which they're now a publicly traded entity. Saw some great golf courses, made some great shoes. And I hope that's Gene Arnold you're talking about, because I made some terrible shoes for him.
Well, you know, he's got bad taste. Bad taste. He's got some ugly shoes. Well, last thing for you, Nick, before we let you go, we appreciate you joining the program. When you work at Infotech here in town. How old is your kid? You're not going to put a helmet on him? Is he going to just have a golf club or football?
No, he's got a helmet, but you know, we got to figure it out. He's 5. His name's Brooks, so he was named after Brooks Koepka because my wife had a crush on Brooks at the time. So,
well, speaking of Brooks Koepka, so tell us the story. Now, I love Koepka because I like his mental game. Nothing bothers that dude. And is it true? You know, I've heard people say he never practices. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. But the other thing is, didn't he want to be a Gator and somehow we didn't get him here?
I'm not going to speak to that. And I will say that maybe he doesn't practice. You know, a guy like Chris DeMarco is the same, and I don't like to practice much either. Who does?
Yeah, practice.
But I like to compete. And most people that like to compete want to compete on a daily basis. And that certainly is Brooks.
Well, Nick, you were a great competitor here at the University of Florida. We appreciate you joining the show. And you and your family be safe, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Be well, Shane. Thank you.
That's Nick Gilliam, former NCAA champion, joining us on the Titan MR hotline. Let's get to our This Day in Sports, which is brought to you by the Best Restoration. Do you have COVID-19 concerns? Do what everyone is doing and hire the Best Restoration to fully sanitize and sterilize your home or office. Visit their offices this week for a free bottle of hand sanitizer when you mention the code SHANE. Call 352-234-8994. And This Day in Sports, back in 1994, unfortunately, right now we should be watching the NBA playoffs, but the Denver Nuggets become the NBA's first 8 seed to upset the number 1 seed, the Seattle Supersonics. I remember that. Dikembe Mutombo was on that team for the Nuggets, but the 1 seed goes down to the 8 seed. Again, we want to thank Jackie Spreads and Sam Graveline for joining the program today. And obviously 2001 NCAA golf champion Nick Gilliam joining us. He's a Gator great. That was a tremendous team in 2001. Not only did they win the national title as a team, but Nick won it as an individual. Tomorrow's program is going to have former Gator tight end Tate Casey, who played for both Ron Zook and Urban Meyer, and now is the sideline reporter for the Gators, will join us next. And we're going to have Brent Beard talking college football. He'll give us the updates on what's going on around the country, what schools are talking about, when they're going to report. A lot of things are happening now. Golf should be kicking off shortly on the PGA Tour. So we're excited. The sports, I think, are right around the corner, folks. And then next week's lineup, check us out. I think we've already posted it on Facebook, and we got some tremendous guests. I will say on Monday, we have Brittany Wagner and Bo Bounds. Bo Bounds is from Mississippi. We'll talk Ole Miss and Mississippi State football. But Brittany Wagner is a friend of mine. If you ever watched Last Chance U, she was the counselor on that. She became a star. So we'll talk about her role of what she did for college athletes. Let's see, we got a couple other Facebook Live comments here brought to you by Pound Hurt, your preferred business interruption attorneys. Robert says, hello, Nick, and hello, Gator Nation. And Mary Helen says, good morning, Gator Nation. So we appreciate people listening to the program. Again, you can follow us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please like us, follow us, tell your friends about us, because we're getting bigger and better by the day. That's going to be it for today's program. Again, don't forget tomorrow, Tate Casey joins us talking Gator football.
He'll probably have some good stories now that he gets to go into the locker rooms to interview players after the games. And Brent Beard talking college football. Be safe out there, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.